Imagine being born in the remote mountains of northeastern Oregon, then setting off on a journey so extraordinary that it would capture the attention of an entire nation. A lone wolf leaves his pack behind and begins traveling across forests, rivers, highways, and vast stretches of wilderness. Day after day, month after month, he keeps moving. No one knows where he's going, or if he'll survive. Wildlife biologists start tracking his movements, expecting the journey to end at any moment. But instead, the wolf does something no one thought possible. He travels hundreds of miles, then hundreds more. Soon, his path becomes one of the longest wolf migrations ever recorded in modern American history. Newspapers begin reporting on him. Conservationists celebrate him. Ranchers worry about what his arrival could mean. And scientists realize they are witnessing something far bigger than the story of a single animal. This wolf wasn't just looking for a new home. Without knowing it, he was about to change the future of wolves in the American West forever. His name was Or7. And his incredible 1,000-mile journey would become one of the most important wildlife stories of the 21st century. For years, wolves had been missing from large parts of the American West. Once, they had roamed freely across vast landscapes, stretching from the Rocky Mountains to the Pacific coast. But by the early 20th century, decades of hunting, trapping, and government eradication programs had pushed them to the edge of extinction in many states. Entire regions that had once echoed with the howls of wolf packs fell silent. Then, in the mid-1990s, something remarkable happened. Wildlife officials began reintroducing gray wolves to Yellowstone National Park and parts of Idaho. The goal was simple but controversial: restore a predator that had played a vital role in the ecosystem for thousands of years. Supporters believed wolves could help repair damaged environments. Critics feared the return of a predator that many communities had spent generations trying to remove. As the years passed, the wolf population slowly began to recover. New packs formed, territories expanded. Young wolves were born into a world their ancestors had once ruled. But nature has always relied on movement. For wolves to truly reclaim their place in the West, they needed more than protected parks and isolated habitats. They needed corridors connecting distant wilderness areas. They needed individuals willing to venture into the unknown. And that's where one young wolf would make history. In 2009, a gray wolf pup was born in northeastern Oregon as part of the Imnaha Pack, one of the state's first established wolf packs in modern times. To wildlife biologists, he was simply identified by a tracking number, Or7. At the time, no one could have imagined that this ordinary-looking wolf would become one of the most famous wild animals in America. He wasn't the largest wolf ever recorded. He wasn't the strongest alpha. He wasn't even the leader of his pack. Yet within a few years, Oregon -7 would embark on a journey so extraordinary that scientists, journalists, conservationists, and ordinary citizens across the country would follow his every move. His travels would break records. His survival would defy expectations. And his story would prove that sometimes a single animal can alter the course of history. But before Or7 became known as Journey, before headlines celebrated his name, and before he crossed more than 1,000 miles of rugged wilderness, he faced the same challenge every young wolf eventually encounters: the call to leave home and find a territory of his own. By the time Or7 reached adulthood, life inside the Imnaha pack had become increasingly complicated. Like many wolf packs, the group operated under a strict social structure. The breeding pair, often referred to as the alpha male and alpha female, occupied the highest positions, while younger wolves remained lower in the hierarchy. As pups matured into adults, competition for food, territory, and future breeding opportunities naturally increased. For a young male wolf, like Or7, staying with the pack forever was never a realistic option. Across North America, dispersal is a normal part of a wolf's life. Sooner or later, many young wolves leave the safety of their birth pack and venture into unfamiliar territory in search of a mate, a new home, and the chance to establish a pack of their own. But dispersal is also one of the most dangerous periods in a wolf's life. Outside the protection of the pack, a lone wolf must survive entirely on its own. There are no pack members to help hunt prey, no relatives to provide protection from rival wolves, no familiar territory to navigate. Every mile traveled brings new risks: rugged mountains, fast-moving rivers, busy highways, human settlements, and rival predators that may view a lone wolf as an intruder. In the autumn of 2011, Or7 made the decision that would change his life forever. He left the Imnaha pack. At first, wildlife biologists didn't think much of it. Wolves had dispersed from packs before. Most traveled moderate distances before either settling down or disappearing from monitoring system. But Or7 was different. Unlike many wolves that quickly establish territories near their birthplace, he kept moving, and moving, and moving. Using data transmitted from his GPS tracking collar, researchers watched in amazement as Or7 crossed vast stretches of eastern Oregon. Instead of settling in one area, he continued pushing farther into landscapes where wolves had been absent for decades. Each new location generated excitement among wildlife officials. The farther he traveled, the more unusual his journey became. Soon, Oregon -7 was covering territory that no modern Oregon wolf had been known to explore. His route carried him through dense forests, high mountain ranges, and remote valleys where few people ever ventured. Day after day, he navigated challenging terrain with remarkable confidence, relying on instincts refined by thousands of years of evolution. Then came a moment that would make headlines across the country. As winter approached, Oregon -7 continued moving south and west, steadily nearing a place that had not seen a confirmed wild wolf in nearly a century. The state of California. For generations, wolves had been absent from California's wilderness. Most residents had never seen 1 inch the wild. Many believed wolves belonged only to history books and old photographs. But Or7 was about to change that. In late 2011, the young wolf crossed the state line. The moment his GPS collar confirmed the crossing, wildlife officials realized they were witnessing a historic event. For the first time since the 1920 seconds, a wild gray wolf had entered California. News organizations quickly picked up the story. Scientists were fascinated, conservation groups celebrated, and suddenly, a lone wolf that had once been known only by a tracking number was becoming a national sensation. Yet Or7 had no idea he was making history. He wasn't searching for fame. He wasn't trying to become a symbol. He was simply following an ancient instinct, one that had guided wolves across continents for thousands of years. But the farther he traveled, the greater the challenges ahead would become, because crossing into California was only the beginning of his remarkable journey. As Or7 wandered through the mountains and forests of California, his historic journey began attracting attention from every corner of the country. What had started as the story of a lone wolf searching for a territory was quickly becoming something much bigger. To conservationists, Oregon -7 represented hope. For decades, wildlife experts had dreamed of seeing wolves naturally return to parts of the West, where they had once thrived. His arrival suggested that wolves were beginning to reclaim ancient migration routes without human intervention. If one wolf could travel this far, perhaps others would follow. But not everyone welcomed the news. For many ranchers and livestock owners, the return of wolves raised serious concerns. Wolves are highly efficient predators, and some feared that expanding wolf populations could threaten cattle, sheep, and rural livelihoods. Suddenly, Oregon -7 found himself at the center of a growing national debate. On one side were people celebrating him as a symbol of wilderness recovery. On the other were those who viewed him as the beginning of a problem they thought had been solved generations ago. Newspapers published articles about his movements. Television stations reported on his location. Wildlife agencies monitored him closely. And everywhere he went, opinions followed. Yet the greatest challenges facing Or7 were not political. They were physical. Unlike wolves living within established packs, Oregon -7 was completely alone. Every hunt carried risk, every injury could be fatal, every unfamiliar valley might already belong to another predator. Researchers tracking his collar noticed something remarkable. Despite months of wandering, Oregon -7 still had not found a permanent territory or a mate. For wolves, isolation can be devastating. A lone wolf may survive for a while, but wolves are social animals. Their strength comes from cooperation, teamwork, and family bonds. Hunting large prey alone is difficult. Defending territory alone is nearly impossible. As the months passed, Oregon -7 continued covering enormous distances across California and Oregon. He crossed highways where speeding vehicles posed a constant danger. He moved through areas inhabited by humans. He entered landscapes where a single mistake could end his journey forever. Then came another problem: winter. Deep snow blanketed much of the terrain he traveled through. Prey became harder to locate. Energy became more difficult to maintain. Survival depended on making the right decisions every day. Many dispersing wolves never survive this stage of life. Some starve. Some are injured. Some simply disappear. But Or7 kept going. Biologists watched in disbelief as his tracking data continued to appear month after month. The wolf that many expected to settle down or perish was proving to be one of the most resilient wolves ever monitored. Still, there was one challenge he could not solve alone. He needed a mate. Without one, his journey would end as an extraordinary migration, but not as a lasting legacy. And as another season passed, no one knew whether Or7 would ever find what he had spent so long searching for. The famous wolf had traveled hundreds upon hundreds of miles. He had survived dangers that would have killed many others. He had already changed history, but the most important chapter of his story was still ahead. After years of wandering across the American West, Oregon -7 had already achieved something extraordinary. He had crossed state lines, survived alone in unfamiliar territory, and become the first confirmed wild wolf in California in nearly a century. His journey had captivated scientists, conservationists, and wildlife enthusiasts across the country. But despite all of that, his mission remained incomplete. He was still alone. For a wolf, survival is only part of the story. The true measure of success is creating the next generation. Without a mate and a pack, Oregon -7's incredible journey could end with him. Then, at last, everything changed. In the rugged forests of southern Oregon, researchers began noticing signs that Or7 was spending time in the same area as another wolf. The data suggested something remarkable. The famous lone traveler had finally found a companion. For months, biologists watched carefully, hoping their suspicions were correct. If Or7 had truly paired with a female wolf, it would mark a major milestone, not only for him, but for wolf recovery throughout the region. Then came the breakthrough everyone had been waiting for. Evidence confirmed that Or7 and his mate had established a territory together. Soon after, researchers discovered something even more important. Pups, Or7 had become a father. The wolf who had spent years roaming across mountains, deserts, forests, and wilderness areas had finally achieved what nature had driven him to do from the very beginning. He had started a new pack. Known as the Rogue Pack, it became one of the most significant wolf packs in modern Oregon history. The formation of the pack demonstrated that wolves were not merely passing through the region. They were successfully reproducing and establishing permanent populations. For wildlife experts, this was a defining moment. Or7 was no longer just a wandering wolf. He had become proof that wolves could naturally expand into new territories and rebuild populations without direct human relocation efforts. His story transformed from an incredible survival tale into a symbol of ecological recovery. Across the country, headlines celebrated the achievement. The lone wolf, once known only by a tracking number, had become a living legend. Children learned about him in schools. Documentaries featured his journey. Scientists cited his movements as one of the most important examples of natural wolf dispersal in recent history. What made the story so powerful wasn't simply the distance he traveled, it was what that distance accomplished. Every mountain crossed, every river forded, every dangerous mile endured had led to this moment. A new generation of wolves, a new pack, and a new chapter in the history of wolf recovery in the American West. The lone traveler had finally found his place. But Or7's greatest impact was still unfolding, because his legacy would reach far beyond the boundaries of his own territory. In the years that followed, Oregon -7 continued to live in the forests of southern Oregon, raising pups and helping establish a new generation of wolves in a landscape where they had been absent for decades. By then, he was no longer just another wolf, carrying a tracking collar. He had become a symbol of resilience, a symbol of wilderness, and a symbol of nature's remarkable ability to recover when given the chance. Researchers continued monitoring the Rogue Pack, watching as Or7's descendants spread across the region. The lone wolf who had once wandered thousands of miles in search of a future, was now creating one. His story changed the way many people viewed wolves. For years, public discussions about wolves had often focused on conflict: predators versus livestock, conservation versus economics, wilderness versus development. But OR7 reminded people of something deeper. He showed what wild animals are capable of when following ancient instincts that have guided their species for thousands of years. He demonstrated the incredible distances wolves can travel. He revealed how connected ecosystems truly are. And he proved that one individual animal can have an impact far beyond what anyone expects. Perhaps the most remarkable part of OR7's story is that he never intended to become famous. He wasn't trying to make history. He wasn't trying to inspire people. He wasn't trying to become the face of wolf recovery in the American West. He was simply doing what wolves have always done: searching, exploring, surviving, and building a future. Yet, through those simple instincts, Oregon-7 accomplished something extraordinary. His journey helped scientists better understand wolf dispersal. His success encouraged new conversations about conservation, and his story became one of the most celebrated wildlife comebacks of the modern era. Today, long after his famous travels captured national attention, Oregon-7 remains known by another name: Journey. A fitting name for a wolf who crossed more than 1,000 miles of wilderness, overcame countless challenges, and changed the course of history without ever knowing it. Because sometimes the most important journeys aren't measured by the miles traveled. They're measured by the legacy left behind. And few wild animals have left a legacy as powerful as OR7, and that is the incredible true story of OR7, the lone wolf who traveled more than 1,000 miles and changed history forever. What began as the journey of a single young wolf searching for a new home became one of the most important wildlife stories of the 21st century. Against all odds, Oregon-7 survived alone, crossed vast stretches of wilderness, became the first wild wolf seen in California in nearly a century, and helped pave the way for a new generation of wolves in the American West. His story reminds us that even one animal can have an extraordinary impact on the world around it. But what do you think? Was OR7 simply following his natural instincts? Or do you think his journey became one of the greatest wildlife success stories ever recorded? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this documentary, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to Wolf Empire, and turn on notifications, so you never miss our next journey into the wild. Until next time, stay curious, stay wild, and remember, out there beyond the forests, mountains, and rivers, nature is still writing stories more incredible than fiction. Thanks for watching Wolf Empire.